Aloha, this is Rosa McAllister, and welcome back to On Being a Service Warrior, interviews with the firewalkers among us. Those who have had their struggles and yet have chosen to come out the other side into lives of service for others. Click subscribe and tap the notification bell to keep up with future episodes of this ongoing series. If this is your first time joining us, don't forget to catch up with other episodes in this series, as well as other offerings in Network's YouTube channel. Mahalo, thank you, and always remember you are the light. Be the light. Hi everyone, here we are again. This is Rosa McAllister, and today I am so honored to welcome and introduce today's guest, Diane V. Capaldi, aka the Paleo Boss Lady, Chef V, and all-around badass. Truth be told, I've known of V for a very long time, decades in fact, as she is one of my older sister's best friends. And I have been awed by stories of V's courage and spunk, adventures, and downright miracles that she alone has created for herself and others. And then this past August, I finally got to meet her in real life and spend some time with her, really getting to know her when she visited Maui with my sister. And I was even more wowed by her, if that's possible, which it is. So as this new series on being a service warrior was being birthed, I knew I had to ask her if she would maybe join in. And here we are today. She said yes. So V, oh my gosh, thank you for agreeing to speak with us.
Thank you for having me. And, I'm so grateful that we did have August to meet because I feel the same way about you, Rosa. Your sister adores you and shares all the time, would say, you need to meet my sister. You need to meet my sister. So I was beyond words grateful when I was invited to come to Maui for my first time. And thank you for sharing Maui with us because you really were our tour guide from picking me up at the airport all the way through till, the final day. So I appreciate it.
It was super fun. And I guess we'll just have to do it again.
Sign me up.
In the meantime, V, so I have the joy and the pleasure of knowing about you, and I know many, many people do. You have quite a following, but I bet there might be a few people tuning in today that don't know you. So who are you? And how would you describe yourself?
Well, I kind of describe myself as a crazy person with what I call my stupid, boring story. My stupid, boring story is that actually, I live with 4 progressive autoimmune diseases. I live with multiple sclerosis, which is a progressive neurological disease. I have Hashimoto's, which is a hypothyroid. I have Epstein-Barr, which people may know as mono. And I have Lyme disease, which is a tick-borne illness. And all of those illnesses are progressive and debilitating. And that did prove true in my life. So that by the age of 37 years old, I was legally disabled, mainly from the effects of multiple sclerosis on my body, which translated into I lost bilateral use of my hands. So I had no use of my hands, which is the highest form of disability a human can have. I mean, just kind of think about it. If you can't use your hands, like, what can you do? You can do less than if you can't lose your, if you can't walk and still use your hands, you can wheel yourself around. But if you can't use your hands, and you can walk, you might be able to walk to the door, but what do you do once you get to the door? You can't open it. So it was very debilitating. I had no feeling on the left side of my body. I couldn't look left, right, up, or down. I had involuntary limb jumping. I could no longer drive because I had no warning of when my limbs were going to jump. So I'd be driving and my right leg would be like, whoa, it's time to hit the gas when I wasn't supposed to be hitting the gas. That was even before I couldn't use my hands. So I had people living with me in full-time help. And, quite honestly, I'm a type A overachiever. So anything the doctors told me to do, I did. I was on the board of the National MS Society, and I felt that if I volunteered and gave back and was connected, that would help. I was involved in many studies with the National MS Society for disease-modifying drugs, for pregnancy with MS, all these things. and basically being the best patient in the world. And I had resources. So if they said take a drug or do a therapy, I had the money and I did it until by the age of 37, I became disabled. And I just continued to progress. By my mid 40s, I had people living with me, full-time help. I was spending almost $40,000 a year in out-of-pocket healthcare costs. Unbelievable. And my situation was getting worse. I lived in constant pain. And 2 marriages had ended when the doctors told me I had moved on to the most progressive form of the disease and to sort of prepare for the bed. My husband drove me home, said he was going to the movies and never returned. So I was completely alone. And I started running out of money. And people with multiple sclerosis are the second youngest and longest population living in institutions in America. And I was facing that truth, and I knew I was. I consider myself rational, but I also consider myself a jumper. And in my rational jumping state, I decided to go to Burning Man, which is a festival in the desert that is based around the arts, which fuel my spirit and my soul. You're outside with Mother Nature, which Mother Nature is my drug of choice. And there's no consumerism, and I'm a minimalist and anti-consumer driven. So it checked off all of the boxes that I needed for it to check off, and got into an RV with my friends and went to Burning Man, and they built a temple. And my thought was to go to the temple to pray, to find out how I should take my life, because I really believe that was the best option. And by the 4th day of praying in the temple, I remember it like the most cathartic moment. I just realized that our healthcare system is a consumer, like it's a for-profit system. And maybe a for-profit system is never going to help me because they make a lot of money on me. Matter of fact, my $37,000, almost $40,000 a year out of pocket healthcare costs paled in comparison to what the health insurance companies were paying for. There was hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. I used to literally fear I was going to reach the maximum like $1 million limit in a year. That's how crazy costs can get with multiple sclerosis, So I think about that now and it blows me away that my healthcare costs were that great. Because at Burning Man, once I had that realization, I came back to where I lived in Venice Beach, and I decided to lock myself in the house and just really make an attempt to figure this out. I had already become a yogi. I had already incorporated meditation, already using essential oils, a lot of using cannabis, using so many holistic treatments. But I was still involved in Western medicine, meaning I was taking many pharmaceuticals. That is the standard of care in America. I had tried many eating protocols. Nothing had worked. As luck would have it, TEDx is a great educational tool. I heard a TEDx from Dr. Terry Walls talking about an eating protocol, called Minding Your Mitochondria. I watched that and I just started doing exactly what she said. And today, as far as we know, I am potentially one of the most healed people in the world who has all 4 of those diseases. I take no drugs. I see no doctors. I spend no money on healthcare outside of insurance. And I do have blood, urine, saliva, and fecal studies done. I have genetic testing done, things like that. But I don't even have a doctor. I still have all these diseases, but I manage everything all by myself. And it's not just food, it's diet, it's lifestyle, it's being a minimalist, it's having joy, it's dancing, it's playing in the dirt. I have a community garden across the street. As soon as I get done this, I'm going to play in the dirt. Like, that is healthcare, Mother Nature, grounding, coming to Maui with my friends of 40 years, things that when you're sick and you identify as a sick person, somehow your world becomes very small and those things are no longer in it. So I had to change my narrative to the point where I had to really look at my life and how limiting my life was. And truth be told, I was limiting my life because society sort of fed me messages with words like disabled, progressive, debilitating, immobile, unable, handicap. I believed all those labels for a long time. And then one day I just felt like I was Superman. Went into the phone booth, changed, and came out like Superwoman. I'm just not going to believe this is what I was put on this earth to do. And, and then, truth be told, once I I had this healing journey, I could no longer keep it to myself. So I went to social media and basically said, anybody in America, just offer me a free place to sleep and I will live with you and show you everything I know for free. So I drove around the United States for almost 4 years, over 100,000 miles, living in strangers' homes, teaching them everything that I knew for free, just to try and create a conscious awareness and to help other people have a better quality of life. And my only question of them or ask of them was, you tell somebody else. When you find someone else in need, maybe you can share one of these tools. Like, don't put a sign on your lawn, but in your life, you may come across someone who may be helped by this information that you have. And you could just say, hey, I happen to know of a great chocolate pudding recipe that doesn't involve refined sugar. Could be that simple, you know? That's my story.
That's amazing. Amazing. I'm stunned, and and even though I know parts of the story, I sure don't know all of the story. And I'm thinking, I think it's sometimes really interesting to look at our lives, our whole lives, in terms of chapters rather than the specific incidents, as you are doing. And I'm wondering about maybe the earlier parts of your life. And again, as I'm saying with everyone, I interviewed myself to start this series, and with everyone, it's, share as much as you wish to share. We're not doing therapy here, but
yeah.
What have your chapters been? Because you didn't just become this badass a couple of years ago, is my guess. It's just my guess.
My chapters, no, I didn't. And I actually was born into a very dysfunctional family. My mother was a prescription drug addict at the hands of our healthcare system. And my father fought in World War II, was a medaled hero, but he was in active combat. He can tell those stories, or when he was alive, would tell those stories. Go up on the mountain with thousands, fight a battle, come down with just a handful of people. So he struggled with severe PTSD, although undiagnosed. If you sneezed more than once in the house, it would trigger my father into violence. Like, that's how sensitive he was to just simple sound. And you can imagine when you're being shot at the age of 18, watching people, your best friends, be killed. Yeah, you're going to be scared anytime you hear a loud noise. And that truly was my dad. My parents were 16 years apart, so that was also a difficult challenge. You have mom who's a strung out junkie and dad who's a war hero, and also in a time when women had to stay home, and my mom was not that person. She was buying penny stocks, and even though she was an addict, she was a very smart woman and doing amazing things. I suffer from PTSD, not only from having autoimmune, but living in that because there was violence in our home. So I think the first chapter of my life would be violence. I would say that my life, I used to convulse most days. My childhood, the number one thing that I think of is violence. The second chapter would be fighter, because my mom said I walked out of her vagina at almost 12 pounds. My father said that the first time he saw me in the nursery, the nurses were all taking orders from me, that I was completely in charge. And I believe that. So I would say my second chapter was, really, it was, I'll show you who's boss, because I always heard all the other moms in the neighborhood feeling sorry for us and sort of whispering, like, those poor kids, they don't have a chance. My second chapter is, let me show you. My third chapter would be autopilot. So I basically did what I was told, went to school, went to community college, found a husband, got married, like followed the rules of autopilot. And then my fourth chapter would be sick, because I got the hepatitis vaccine and the next day woke up with symptoms of multiple sclerosis. So I'm not anti-vax or pro-vax, I'm just telling my truth. So I worked as a respiratory therapist at a hospital where I met your sister, and our job required us to get the hepatitis vaccine. I got the vaccine, and the next day I woke up and I couldn't feel the left side of my body, which later was diagnosed as MS. So I believe it was a work injury, a vax injury. So that chapter was injured. And then the next chapter would be bottom. I was at rock bottom because my body no longer took commands. My life partners were gone. I actually packed up and left everybody I knew on the East Coast and moved to California because I lost the ability to regulate my own body temperature, which most people are like, well, if you're hot, just go into air conditioning. But it's a core temperature issue. Once it gets elevated, it will not regulate down by air conditioning. It has to do it on its own. So I tried to move to the place in America where I didn't need heat or air conditioning, which is at the beach in California. So I moved there to try and save myself, but I didn't know anyone. So I left everyone, your sister, my whole support, everyone. So in that chapter, I really had to take control, and I did. And so much so that I was in another relationship, and I took enough control where I had to end every relationship, leave where I lived. I basically had to strip myself down to nothing. And it was in that period that my healing journey began, when I really sat with myself and realized that simple things like, we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and there's no real reason why. There's no medical reason why. We actually will say things like having breakfast for dinner because foods are told to us what meals we should have them in. And, those ideas are created by the companies that want us to eat that food. There's no scientific or healthy reason for me to be doing that. So in my healing journey, I had to ask myself everything like that. Why do I do that? And is that really helping me? I would set an alarm clock to wake up, and yet when the alarm would go off in the morning, it would scare me. So I would wake up scared. Why? I just set an alarm clock because that's what I was told to do. But quite honestly, I can wake up without an alarm clock, and I certainly don't need to wake up scared. So, in that healing journey, the biggest thing that I did was to wake up and really know who I was and make choices based on who I am. Not that I'm a female, not that I'm of Italian descent, not that I'm from the Philadelphia area. Prior to that, everything in my life was based on factors that included my gender, my location, my family, my religion, all of that. And once I was able to sort of strip that away and be like, well, who is V? I changed my name because V is not the name given to me. Like, I literally took it to, I'm a minimalist. I only wear 3 colors. I'm sick of my hair, so I shaved my head. Like, all of these things are part of that journey of healing that basically is a narrative of self-love and being woke.
Wow. So tell us about V. So why V, and what is V?
V is short for verb. I don't see myself as a noun. I see myself as an action. I don't walk into a room. I enter the room, and I command that everyone knows I'm in the room just because of the energy that I put out there, not because I think I'm beautiful, gorgeous, smart to be hailed or honored, but because I'm just filled with joy. Like, I have an infectious personality because I have gratitude and joy, and people feel that coming from me. And I truly do, because I've been to hell and back. And I truly believe that this is my purpose, and my mission was, I'm grateful every day I have MS. Like, if the heavens opened up and whoever's up there said, okay, roll call, everybody gets to pick whatever life they want, I'd be like, same life, same parents, same. I want it all exactly the same. I don't want you to change any of it.
Yep, I hear you. I say the same thing. Absolutely.
And we've both had tragedy, great tragedy that by other people's standards, they wonder how we could overcome that tragedy and how could we ever want that again. But I believe that my journey is my journey, and I'm proud to own my journey, and how I've responded to my journey is what makes me want to play that hand over and over again, because I'm constantly showing myself who I am and what my role is in the grand scheme of things. And I believe that when I leave this energy space, there will be a legacy of my time here. And to me, that's why I'm here. Whatever energy space I'm in, I hope that when I'm not there, I still have the capacity to make it better for anyone else in that energy space.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I think I could probably guess them, but what are your mantras for living? What are your passions if you had to put them into words?
Actually, it's funny. They're on the wall in my dining room. That's why I'm looking up. I have them written right down. The first one is to own my power, because oftentimes in this journey, I can easily give up my power and forget my power stance. The second thing is to not forget who I am, because I call myself a miracle, and I didn't get here by just, oh, I have MS. Oh, yeah, that's what I owned my power, and I made choices, and I was proactive and not reactive. So don't forget that part. The next mantra is giving back to others. To me, that is my drug of choice. That is where I go for all the time. I dedicate a tremendous amount of time every day of my life to making the world a better place and helping others. Respecting Mother Nature and Mother Earth. And when I get done, I have my compost going over across the street. Like I try and only have to put trash out once a week because I have so little. I'm recycling so much, recycled clothes. I really want to respect my footprint on this earth. And then last but not least is, am I allowed to say a minor curse word? Well, it's kind of a big curse word.
Just go for it. What the hell?
Fuck fear.
I'm sorry.
Because,
I'm sorry. Hang on a second. Say that again.
Fuck fear. Because I think fear is what stops a lot of us. We are afraid. And I'm not saying that we're not justified when we feel fear, because I know it's a very real emotion. But sometimes we just have to stand up to it, look in the mirror, put our big girl panties on, and be like, I'm just going to go for it anyway. And that's really where the magic happens. When I announced that I was going to live in strangers' homes, people, my friends were calling me like, your sister, what the heck are you doing? Like, how do you know people aren't going to kill you? And I was like, well, I just feel like I'm protected because I'm serving. And if I was going to die that way, not a bad way to die, trying to make the world a better place, I'm not going to be mad about it. You got to go some way. And that was my response. And people were sort of blown away that I was saying that. But in the back of my mind, I was saying, you are out of your mind. I can't believe you're doing this. Like I wasn't 100% like, yeah, this is going to be great, sleeping in strangers' homes. But my fear was not strong enough that I wasn't willing to do it. My fear was there, but, my desire to help others and to share my knowledge was stronger. So I don't want to discount or let people know, oh, I'm fearless, because I'm not fearless. I did have fear. I just was stronger than fear. I was able to say to fear, okay, I know you're there and I'm honoring you, but you're not bigger than what I believe I need to do. So that's why I say that. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have fear and that fear doesn't exist. And if you do, you're weak. I do have fear. A lot of times I have fear, but I have self-love and self-belief, can always put baby in the corner, which is fear.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, yeah. I hear it. I love it. Fuck fear. Totally.
Mm-hmm. So they're written on my wall.
Good. It's a good place for them to be. So we face it. So we see it every single day. And others who enter your space know it. It's not, and the other part, V, is obviously you're wearing those mantras. You wear them loud and clear. You wear them in your very presence. You wear them in all your actions and all you do and all you give. So it's not a surprise.
Which is good and bad. I mean, some people I think get upset because when they're in my presence and I'm just like, well, they'll be like, oh, I like that shirt. I'm like, 50 cents, Goodwill. I'm like, oh, recycled. After a while, they're just like, okay, clearly I get your message. You know what I mean? So I wear it and I do wear it. So I hope that, I'm just trying to inspire people, not dictate how they need to live their lives, just to open their minds to other narratives that are present.
Right. Absolutely. And shake things up.
Of course. That's my favorite part.
I knew that. So what's next? What are you still working on, working through when we catch back up with you? What's V going to tell us? What's happened or what's on the horizon? Or tell us about what just recently happened or what also is happening.
It's interesting because last March, around this time, actually, my daughter, I have an only child, requested that I stop touring America. And I'm 50, I'll be 57, and I wanted to tour until I was 60. So this was not my narrative. She was like, I worry about you. Please, will you consider coming off tour? So I didn't really have a clear picture of what that would look like. And I only knew that she requested and I was willing to oblige her. So I had to figure out, well, who is V now? And before I became disabled, V was a powerhouse businesswoman who built and sold companies from the ground up, was an international speaker, built international companies, and made millions of dollars. And that part of me is just naturally who I am. And once you have a disability label, you never think that you're ever going to get back. And it would have been okay if I didn't, but there's always been a yearning for me to get back into that. And I said to my daughter, well, I'm going to see if I can build a consulting company, become a businesswoman, help companies grow. I also talked to you. I wanted to teach at a university. I wanted to be a retreat chef. I wanted to be hired to chef for retreats all over America. And so I'm doing all of that. I have a thriving consulting company. I am teaching an adjunct faculty at Antioch University, teaching people a class on how to change their narrative. I am a hired chef for Lead Up for Women, doing cooking all over America. I am on iHeartRadio. I was actually live today on the radio. I'm a radio personality for iHeart, talking about consciousness. And I have the brand of Paleo Boss Lady. I just finished a online summit, the first ever summit on CBD and cannabis. I'm a CBD and cannabis expert, where we had 37 speakers. I have a newsletter. I have a blog. I'm a chef all over San Diego. You can hire me. I'm cooking. I've been hired to cook all this weekend. So, I'm like a normal person. I have an apartment, and I'm still a minimalist. In my bedroom, I have a bed. In my living room, I have a sofa, a desk, a television. In my dining room, I have a table, chairs. Like, that's it. I don't have a lot of things. I still only wear black, gray, and white. Like, I'm still the same minimalist. I'm in the community garden across the street. That's organic. So I'm growing my own food. Just really owning my power and taking back what society told me could no longer be mine. I also have removed the label of disabled from me. So for 19 years, I was labeled as a disabled American, and I am no longer identifying as a disabled American. Oh, sorry.
Awesome. I think that was the exclamation point, by the way.
Yeah, that was actually the exclamation point / laundry's done.
Back to the normal.
Yeah, back to the normal. But for me, that was a big thing, was to consciously, I put myself back in school when I was at my sickest. I got a bachelor's and a master's. I specialize in community psychology. I worked very hard with the Department of Rehabilitation and was accommodated until I was able to find a clear path to officially no longer be classified as disabled. So this chapter is, just BAM. It's the BAM chapter. It's really believe in a miracle. It's the mirror. I mean, I really truly am living a miracle every single day, and reversing every label, every stereotype, everything the doctors and people have told me, everything people thought I would be. I'm just, no, that's not really going to happen. No, not here.
Not you. Not you.
No. And I actually thrive in that environment, so that's why I call myself crazy. And it's a super boring story, because the story is, I will politely go to the front door. I'll try the back door. Then I'll try the window. I'll try the chimney. Like, I'm just, you just don't ever get rid. Like, I'm never going to give up. I'd never say uncle, never. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. But that truly is, what it takes to be this person.
I love that analogy. I oftentimes have used a very similar analogy with people, working with people when they feel stumped or they feel it's an impossible or whatever. And I oftentimes say, look, say, I come to my house and I want to get to the backyard, or I come to someone's house. It's not even my house. And I want to get to the backyard. I could politely knock at the door, ring the doorbell, and hope that I can convince, coerce, get invited or whatever through the house to the back door. Or I could see if there's a gate, or maybe there's not even a fence, or maybe I could just barge in, or maybe I could climb over or go through the window or burrow under or walk around the block, for heaven's sake. Or better yet, maybe I don't need to get to the backyard after all.
Right. That's even more powerful.
That's even more power. It really is. And when we get so stuck and so damned and so labeled and so all that you've been, to take the courage and to take the breath to say, I'm not even sure I want the backyard anymore, let alone how am I going to do it? And you've done that. And you've done it. And I'm sure it has not been easy, and certainly not for the, for the easy ones in life. And thank God, maybe, as you said, you had the chops, you had the beginnings to get you ready.
I really believe that, when I decided to go on tour, I called my daughter at like 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday because the idea came to me on a yoga mat, as clear as day. I called her. I'm like, I was just on the yoga mat and I'm supposed to sell everything, living straight, the whole thing. And normally she's like, Mom, you're crazy. You're not doing it. Stop it. And she paused for a moment and she said, I feel like your whole life has prepared you for this, Mom. I believe this is what you're supposed to do. And my response was, that's it? That's all you're going to say? Not a question? You're not going to, then I was like, I was nervous because I'm like, but truly she was right. I was prepared for this role. I was all of this. That's why I have gratitude. And on my mother's deathbed, I told her, Mom, I want the same mom. Like, I knew long before my healing journey that the life that I had was the life that I always wanted. All the bad, it didn't matter. I had the best parents. They may not have been ideal parents. They may not have known how to be parents, but still my mom and dad, they're always going to be important and special to me, even though they're no longer here. And I recognize how they got to where they are. It wasn't my mother's fault. And back then, no one really knew about opiate addiction like we do now. And no one really knew how to help young boys sent off to fight active combat in a war that had their best friends killed by their sides, So I understand how my parents got to where they are, and I'm not mad at them or, have no ill feelings. I'm grateful that they were my mom and dad. And, I think that part right there is super healing.
I totally, totally agree. I totally understand. Absolutely. So going back to the first question that I asked you. So given all of this, all we've discussed, all we've talked about, and it's been so wonderful. So who are you? Who is V?
V is an action. V is a presence. I mean, I truly believe that when I leave this energy space, my impact is going to be felt whether I'm here or not. So, and again, not to be conceited, but it's always been that way. I mean, I just had somebody on LinkedIn reach out to me today. 2 years ago, I met you for a second and and I'm just, so humbled, and I've done this and that and this. And no, I don't know this person. I have no recollection of, I don't mean to sound conceited or, they met me at Paleo FX. A lot of times I'm speaking, there was 10,000 people there. Like, I can't remember all the people that, I engage with. But yet this person, I've had an impact on their life that 2 years later, they felt it necessary to say, hey, since I met you, I've done this, and I'm just so grateful. And so I believe I'm a presence. I'm a verb. I truly believe I'm a verb.
I think you are, honey. And then some.
Yeah.
And then some.
Scary verb.
A good scary verb. So mahalo. Arigato, gracias. Tuksuma tak. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very much for your wisdom, for your presence, for your actions, for being who you are, and for entering my life, and for being willing to talk to us. Thank you.
And thank you for serving the community that I identified with and helping people that need accommodations and need to figure out their way in a world that doesn't make it easy when we're not normal. And for doing this series, because this is the kind of, the lives that can be changed, we really can't predict. But I guarantee you that someone's going to hear one, if not all of these interviews, and it's going to give them that, whatever it is, that peace that they're looking for, to inspire them to have the life that they've always dreamed of, no matter what. So namaste to you for putting this, constantly putting this out there and being so selfless and such a beautiful soul.
Thank you, love. Thank you ever so much.
Love you.
I love you too, and hope to see you real soon. This series on being a service warrior is brought to you by Networks for Training and Development Incorporated via funding by the Philadelphia and Northumberland Counties Behavioral Health Intellectual Disability Services in Pennsylvania, and with the help of Joe Sterling of Joe Doggy Productions, Waikapu, Hawaii. Many thanks to all our guests and fellow firewalkers for sharing their wisdom, learnings, and joy with us.